Hey everybody. No, I'm not a masochist, but I might be a fool on a fool's errand because I'm going to try to rank all the songs on the Beatles Red Album, the Beatles' greatest hits, I guess, if you want to call it that, 1962 to 66. I bought this. I bought this album in junior high. I was a little too old to buy Revolver and Rubber Soul and Help. And sometimes when people a little older than me talk about the Beatles on all those albums, I always feel a little out of the loop because I didn't really grow up with the albums, but I did grow up with this. I listened to this a lot. Like I bought this like when I was 12, 13 years old, 14, something like that. And one of these days I'll get around to ranking all the songs on Beatles album 1967 to 70, the Blue Album, which is similarly great. I happen to think the earlier Beatles might be, well, it's not to be in the shadow of older Beatles. I think the production values on some of those early Beatles songs don't always appeal to the ears of younger listeners that have grown up with today's music. And I wish the Beatles corporation would allow more people to play that music without making such a big legal deal, because they're slowly but surely becoming kind of like Smithsonian archives. You know, you just hear those old mono recordings, and if you're lucky, 4-track, and they ought to let people do those a lot, you know, with the production to keep, because the underlying songs are so great, and I just hope they're not becoming kind of museum pieces about the early 1960s, because the one thing that's too bad is that, you know, it reflects the production of the time. The album sounds great, and I'm sure they've remastered it and things since then, but that was one thought I had too, is they ought to let people play these and do them, because the songs themselves are timeless, you know, and they shouldn't be frozen in, you know, the early 1960s. That's, if you're frozen, you're a fossil, you know, and the songs are timeless. But anyway, there are 26 songs on here, and I actually had trouble ranking them, and I felt sort of foolish even trying. It's literally every one of these 26 songs is one of the best songs ever made, you know, literally, and it's just like song after song. But I kind of started with my favorite and worked my way down, just and allowing myself to just sort of be a little bit serendipitous and personal in my responses. Side 1 is Love Me Do, Please Please Me, From Me to You, She Loves You, Yeah, 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 I Want to Hold Your Hand, All My Loving, Can't Buy Me Love. Side 2 is A Hard Day's Night, and I Love Her, 8 Days a Week, I Feel Fine, Ticket to Ride, Yesterday. Side 3 is Help, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, We Can Work It Out, Day Tripper, Drive My Car, Norwegian Wood. It's just ridiculous. You look at that catalog, that's the test of time. That's not, you know, a band that had a couple good songs. That's like so unbelievable. Side 4 is Nowhere Man, Michelle, In My Life, Girl, Paperback Writer, Eleanor Rigby, and Yellow Submarine. And those songs are never going to get old, but I guess one thing is you have to imagine how they kind of connected you to the music of the 50s and 60s, you know, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis, or even people like Pat Boone. And but they also they were innovative and grounded in a tradition all at the same time. And I think that's why they were such powerful cultural figures. They were innovative and also derivative. And that's what a lot of great artists are. They derive their inspirations and even maybe some of their techniques and skill sets from the greats that came before, and then they innovate. Let's start start out here with 27. I put down, and we're going to work our way to number 1. 27 is Love Me Do. Great song. I think Pete Best even played on the first version of that. But it's a great song. It's kind of early. I think they matured as they continued to write, but it definitely is a great song. 26 is With Love From Me to You. Another great song. All these are just like classic songs. It's just ridiculous. And some of them you don't hear that much. 25, I put Help. And man, they're such good songs. And I'm sticking them down here in the bottom of the list. But they had to go somewhere. Number 25, I put down Help. I Need Somebody. I used to play in an acoustic guitar duo. Several acoustic guitar duos, actually. And we did a lot of these acoustically. And they work great acoustically, by the way. You don't have to have, like a, Hofner guitar and, a Gretsch Country Gentleman. You just get out a couple acoustic guitars and play the chording heart of the song. Number 24, Norwegian Wood. What a great Lennon song. And I've definitely played that a lot too. And that is an acoustic song per se, and it's a terrific song. Had to go somewhere. 23, I put down She Loves You. Yeah, yeah, which was an Americanism. And I guess I always try to picture the Brits back in 1963 hearing yeah, 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 which sounded, apparently I didn't realize this until I heard, because I was an American, so I didn't really think about it, but yeah, yeah, yeah is considered American slang, I guess. And Paul McCartney's dad famously said he should change it from yeah, yeah, yeah to yes, yes, yes. I've heard that's kind of funny. Seems like Paul McCartney's dad was probably a pretty cool guy. He said, change it to yes, yes, yes. That's the kind of thing my dad might have said to me, change it to yes, yes, yes. But I always picture some teenage girl with bobby socks on and kind of the 50s attire going, yeah, chewing gum going, yeah, yeah, yeah. But anyway, great song, She Loves You. 22, Hide Your Love Away, another great acoustic song. I think that reflects the influence of Mr. Bob Dylan coming on, which was a big influence. Number 21, I put down Eleanor Rigby, which is such a great song, and I think it shows the depth of the Beatles. They weren't just a pop band, as great as their pop music was, because that's a song about, it's a very profound, kind of insightful song into human beings. It's not just a song about some pretty girl. It's, about an older person that's lonely, and, it has the image of the grave and lonely funerals. I played for funerals because I play the piano and organ for funerals sometimes. I played for piano or music for funerals with 3 or 4 people there. And the funeral home used to call me up and play, and you feel like you're doing something for somebody, but it's not always clear who, and it's not... there's a loneliness to those funerals where there are 2 people there, and I've been at several like that. Number 20, 8 Days a Week. Great song. I love 8 Days a Week. But it had to go somewhere. Number 19, We Can Work It Out. Man, it's just ridiculous putting all these great songs at the bottom of any kind of list whatsoever, but they had to go somewhere. We Can Work It Out. Great song. Number 18, Can't Buy My Love. That's a terrific song. I remember we listened to that in 6th grade. We had a great 6th grade music program. We sang all the songs of U.S. history, and I learned a perspective on U.S. history through singing all those songs. And it stuck with me all these years. And I was, 12 years old or something. We sang songs of the Civil War. But I remember she had a unit on the Beatles. And she was kind of a young woman. Now I realize she was probably in her early 20s, and this would be in the 70s. So she was a big Beatles fan. And I remember she played Can't Buy Me Love for our class. And that's the first time I remember hearing that song, specifically hearing it. And it's a great song. And I always think of that music class in 6th grade. Hope kids today have great music like that in their school. We didn't sit around and study whole notes, but we did band. I was in band back then in Tonette. But I mean, just the music where we just sang great songs. And that was actually one of them. 16, I put down Yellow Submarine. When I was a kid, they said Yellow Submarine was about some kind of illicit substance or something. I don't know. And then, it's just it's a song for kids of all ages. It's a happy, positive, wholesome song as far as I'm concerned. And Ringo Starr sang it. the other night when I saw him in concert. Was that just a couple months ago? And I think that's how the crowd perceived it too. It was just a happy, wholesome song for kids of all ages. And it could go right in there with any nursery rhyme type song, and yet it's kind of an adult song as well. Just terrific. So that's what great song is. 15, I put down Michel Maybelle. Sont les mots qui vont très bien ensemble. What a great song. And they tossed a little French in there. You know, there are other old recordings where the Beatles, I think, talked French, at least some, you know. And that's great because, you know, England and France aren't that far apart. So they talk some German, too, in some of those old recordings. But I love that. One thing about Michelle is when I was a kid, I always wanted to play that song because it's such a great acoustic guitar song. It's kind of folksy. It sounds maybe almost could be like a Simon and Garfunkel song or Peter, Paul and Mary song or like a Chad and Jeremy song or Ian and Sylvia or something. But it was kind of hard to learn, and it was only years later I learned they were using a capo and and not tricks, but you know, kind of more professional guitar playing where it's not flashy or anything, but it's really kind of neat guitar. And it's not really conventional. Anyway, you need a capo, and I think the capo's on the 7th fret or something. I'm sure people on YouTube will tell you how to play it in 2 seconds nowadays. But for years, I couldn't figure out how to play that song, and I had the piano music, and it wasn't all that much of a help. And that's an example where young people today have so much more available to them because I always wanted to play Michelle, and I even had the piano vocal guitar book, and it wasn't very helpful. And it didn't seem like there was any way to learn it back then. I tried, or I came up with ways that didn't sound quite right. And now on YouTube, you can probably learn it in 5 seconds, but it's a great song. 14, I put down All My Lovin', Close Your Eyes. That was the opener on the Ed Sullivan Show, if I'm not mistaken. 13, Nowhere Man. What a great song. He's a real nowhere man. I think that's Lennon, kind of the acerbic wit of Mr. Lennon coming in there. You know, they always started out so kind of wholesome, but I think pretty early on, Lennon's wit and sarcasm and his a little bit more jaded view of life started to creep into their songs, usually for the better, and that's one of them. Number 12, I put down Day Tripper. You know what? I was going to put that higher because if for no other reason than that opening riff's got to be one of that's got to be one of the great riffs in all of the history of the electric guitar. Just terrific. But we're coming up. Speaking of great riffs, number 11, I put down I Feel Fine. Purportedly the first use of feedback on any song. Maybe that's kind of like Keith Richards, the first use of fuzz on Satisfaction. They always say I Feel Fine is the first use of feedback. I'm not sure if that's true, but it might be. But it's definitely early use of feedback, and it's a great, great song. And it's kind of a cool riff, you know, George Harrison. I didn't get my guitar out. I was going to play some of these riffs, but I didn't want to turn it into a guitar lesson. But if you look at I Feel Fine, it's kind of a cool riff. It's not flashy. It's not like Van Halen flashy guitar, but it's really well done kind of old rock and roll style guitar playing, you know, electric guitar playing. I Feel Fine, and it's really good. 10, I put down Hard Day's Night. That's another one that I used to play a lot because even though it's a kind of a rock song, it's one that really lends itself well to good, you know, acoustic guitar. And I was in a duo. That was always, and we had the vocals down pretty well, but that's a great song. Number 9, I put down Please Please Me. Now that's a terrific song, Please Please Me, and just awesome. And that was also, I think, one of their very first songs, like right in there with She Loves You and Love Me Do, isn't it? Please Please Me. I don't think you have any of their covers like Roll Over Beethoven or Mr. Postman on here, but I'm not sure. I think these are all Lennon McCartney songs, and I don't think they're any George Harrison songs. Number 8, I Want to Hold Your Hand. Got to be one of the best pop songs ever, and it's kind of bubblegum, but it's so well done. Oh man, songwriting school 101. That's just textbook great songwriting. It's got that bridge where it goes to D minor, and it's just such a superior, the songwriting is just so superior. And you know what? It's great songwriting, but it's once you hear it, it feels like you've heard it a million times before, and that's a really good songwriting because it's not funny. It doesn't take any extra effort to listen to it, or you don't have to be attentive like you're listening to, you know, some modern atonal composition or something that people might say is great. It's just so natural and easy, and somebody had to think of it first, and that to me is the mark of greatness right there. 8, I Want to Hold Your Hand. Now we're coming into the heavy hitters here. 7, I put down In My Life. Oh my gosh, what a poignant song. I think that's more of a Lennon song. I think that shows the depth of Lennon, and it's also such a well written song musically, and the vocals and everything on that. It's just timeless. And, just thinking back on your life. What was he, like 22, 20 when he wrote that? Maybe 23, I don't know. But sounds like something that an old man should have written. But what a great song. Okay, now we're in the top 6. 6, I put down Girl. And, so I noticed some of the ones I put down in the top 6, I don't hear quite as much as some of the ones in the bottom, but that Girl is just a great song. Oh, girl, it's just a really, really nice, well-written song. So good. Number 5, I put a couple of what I thought were their best riff songs. I put down number 5, Drive My Car. God, what a great guitar part, and the way the vocals kick in. Oh man, that's an example where I like I say, I wish they'd let people play those songs more, because I think one of the things that limits older music like that is people can't play it. So you just listen to the older recordings, and no matter how many times they master them, it ends up being kind of a Smithsonian archives, or people that listen to it that want to study the early 1960s in their PhD program or something. And that's timeless music. They ought to let people play those. That riff and Drive My Car and the way those vocals kick in is just great. All of which leads us to number 4, about which we might say the exact same thing, which is Paperback Writer. Number 4 is Paperback Writer, which again is just an outstanding riff. That's kind of, Alice Cooper. They might seem different, but Alice Cooper's like that. He's just got like great little kind of catchy riffs at the beginnings of his songs. But that Drive My Car and Paperback Writer have just great kind of riffs. They're not flashy, but they're just great rock and roll riffs. And then those vocals kick in. Paperback Writer was number 4. Number 3, Ticket to Ride. Ticket to Ride. The first time I ever heard the version of Ticket to Ride I learned growing up was by the Carpenters, because one of the first albums I ever bought, like when I first started buying albums, I bought the Carpenters singles, was that 1969 to 71. That Brown album used to be, a lot of these hit albums used to be pretty familiar, but some of you younger people might not know. But the Carpenters had a greatest hits album. It was Brown. And Ticket to Ride was one of those songs, and I just loved Karen Carpenter singing it. But boy, they had a different take on it. And but what a great song. That's another one where there's great riff. Ringo Starr's great on drums. Now we're coming up to the top 2, and I flipped them. I thought about it first because I was going to put 2 as number 1, and then I changed my mind. Number 2, I put down Yesterday. Yesterday is such a good song. And like I said, they ought to let people play that more, because that song, just the core songwriting part of that song, is a timeless song. It's like You Are My Sunshine, Edelweiss, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, When You Wish Upon a Star. Some of those songs that just kind of sound so perfect, and you kind of go, why didn't I think of that? And it's a melody song. It's just such a great melody. And the words, I guess he had the melody before the words, right? He kicked around different words, scrambled eggs, how I love my baby's legs, or something like that for 6 months. And then, but timeless. And it's like an Irving Berlin song, Rodgers and Hammerstein, Stephen Foster, outstanding song. And they ought to let people play these, just like play them, Number 1, and I thought about it because it wasn't one I thought maybe some of you would have put down. I put down And I Love Her as number 1. You agree with me? I don't know. It's maybe not quite as familiar, but And I Love Her is such a gorgeous song. And I think the guitars in that with George Harrison, and oh my gosh, it's a great song. Just great. And I've played that I actually was asked to play that at a wedding about 15 years ago with another guy. And so we kind of learned it, properly, which it's not hard, but it is one of those ones you kind of want to like a lot of Beatles songs, they're not hard per se, but they're also songs. If you want to make them sound nice, you kind of want to learn what the Beatles are actually doing. And I Love Her is such a beautiful song. It reminds me a lot of. It's very early '60s. It's kind of like Green Sleeves or some of those great early '60s folk songs, or Love Is Blue, or some of the almost it almost could be like who sang a lot of that kind of stuff back then, like I don't know, but it's very much a product of the early '60s. I always think of turtleneck sweaters, and I don't know why, but it's just a brilliant song, and I Love Her. I think a lot of these might be McCartney songs, actually. John Lennon had a lot of them, but they're Lennon and McCartney songs. But I think some of the ones that I tended to rank higher might have been McCartney songs. But I put down "And I Love Her" as number one. And any of these could have been number one. It's like I said, it's a fool's errand to try to rank those. But I put down "And I Love Her" as number one. And just a final thought. When Lisa Marie Presley died the other day, I heard someone say, no one in this country will ever be as famous as Lisa Marie Presley, not let alone her dad, because we're so kind of fragmented socially and culturally and things. And I think that's true about the Beatles. There might be people out there that write and sing and play like the Beatles, but I don't know if something's different about us, our culture. I don't know if there's anybody that's as good as the Beatles out there. The Beatles were pretty good, but there might be. But when you take the brilliance of their music, their personalities, but also the time, it was that great confluence of time, people, and circumstances. And this is just ridiculous. It is flat out ridiculous. It's just silly how good these songs are. And we haven't even got to the blue one yet. I actually think the production on the blue one's a little better. You start to get like more multi-track recordings and things. But I don't know if the song per song, if it's better than the red one. I don't know. Some of that early Beatles is just absurdly good. But I put down "And I Love Her" as number one, and I was going to put down "Yesterday" as number one, because I've always said "Yesterday." That's right up there with Edelweiss or somewhere. It's just one of those great White Christmas, any of those really like timeless melodies that everybody can kind of sing to. And I thought about I'm going to do something a little different, and I picked "And I Love Her" because I think that's just an outstanding song. Thanks. God bless.